Welcome to the Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at artistfirst.com. Please send your questions and comments to dj@artistfirst.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Gosh, it's good to Hi, Z.
Hey, guys.
Hey. We've been on hiatus, which is not like a hiatal hernia, but it's almost as painful.
Just a space.
It's a space.
Yes, there's been a space.
And we're like all practiced, and my voice is good, and
he's excited.
I've had surgery and treatment, and I'm feeling good. We are back. We are so back.
Yeah, it's good to hear your voice.
It's good to hear your voice, and it's good to hear our voices. So thank you very much, D-Man, and I am Michael Lyons.
I'm Margaret.
And we're completely out of practice. This is like day one.
I don't think.
All right, it's not like day one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like day 1.5. Well, anyway, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy to represent to you the Soul of the Everyman, live and in living color, nationwide, coast to coast. And we are going to talk tonight about a sort of a new subject for us. We've never done something like this, but Margaret particularly has been taking a lot of information in on this particular subject, and we're going to launch into it a little bit and see how it goes. Tonight we're going to revitalize or re-up our prison series. For those of you who were longtime fans, we had a prison series. We had actually several. 2 or 3 different kind of runs at the prison series. We had the prison of this and the prison of that. But tonight we're going to talk about the prison of addiction. So this is I think, a very germane, a very topical subject to cover, because right now in this very country and really around the world, we're dealing with a scourge of various types of opioid addictions. Not least of which fentanyl, which is just killing people left and right, unfortunately. And when we were kids, the big one, not kids maybe, but when we were young adults, the big one that was sort of scourge and killing people was cocaine that was everywhere, and then there was crack, and there was so many other drugs. But what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the whole process of addiction, what surrounds it. One of the big kind of drivers of addiction, besides the neurophysiological, is of course the psychological, and they kind of marry together to each other, and it does, I say, it does dovetail in with a lot of what we do on the Soul of Everyman, which is talking about not just the unconscious, the unconsciousness, the unconscious person, the narcissistic and egoic and sort of unable to connect to the actual reality of the world, living in either the future or the past, living with the pain body. All of these things can in one aspect or another also drive you into substance abuse or various types of addictive or obsessive or compulsive types of behavior. So I think it dovetails in with that. But then I'll let you, because you've spent a lot of the time talking about this and learning about this, so maybe give a little piece on that.
Well, what fascinated me was the fact that you, as a human being, you try to begin to experience your world. And in that interaction, of course, there's going to be very unhappy moments. It's just what happened.
That is so true.
Well, in essence, you try very hard to experience the world in a way that makes sense. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And in that interaction, when you're a baby and you're born into this world, one interesting fact I thought came up was there was a lecture by Dr. Labor who's talking about when babies are born, they introduce them immediately to food. And we think, oh, well, that's because they're hungry and they need to have food. What she says is we have to get them addicted to food, because without that introduction, they won't know that they need to eat. And that was a big revelation to me. I was like, wait a minute. You mean you have to introduce them to the milk to let them know that their body needs this? Because I thought, it's just natural, like all of us.
Almost instinctive.
Instinctive. But she's saying that you have to get them addicted to food.
And that whole mechanism. So that's a great point to make, is that addiction is something that is actually a survival mechanism of sorts.
Right.
So we've kind of jumped into the middle, but let me just back up a little bit. The subject of addiction is negative in most people's minds. But that point that you just made, and this woman who was a lecturer, Nicole Labor, has been lecturing on this particular subject for many, many years. I said that, to the point you just made, that infants, I think I always assumed, maybe you always assumed too, that when you were born, you come out hungry.
Right.
But in fact, what they found, and this is not just Dr. Labor's opinion, but this is neurological, physiological fact, that when young humans are born, or probably almost any animal, but let's just go with young humans are born, they are primed to be addicted to something. But the mechanism of addicting them to something, in this case, something good, like food, breast milk, the mechanism of addicting them to something is that you introduce a stimulus. The stimulus sets off a cascade of neurochemicals, one of which, primarily in this case, is dopamine.
Right.
So dopamine, everyone's heard of dopamine. It's I'm getting my dopamine hits. I'm feeling good. I'm doing the things I like to do. I'm getting my dopamine. So everyone's heard of it, sort of peripherally, but it's one of the 7 or 8 neurotransmitters that's extremely important in the functioning of the brain. So this cascade of sugars and proteins and everything comes into the body, hits the stomach sends signals go up to the midbrain, the part of the brain that keeps your heart pumping, that keeps you alive. And it fires off this huge surge of I feel good, dopamine. And it cascades into the midbrain, and it crosses, and this is the important thing that Dr. Labor talks a lot about, it crosses a specific threshold. You have a set point. Many of your whole body has got these set points in the midbrain. Midbrain knows how fast your heart should go and knows how high your temperature should be.
Your midbrain regulates the functioning of your physical body. Mm. So that's all its function is, to monitor the systems of the body and make sure that they are running.
Right. It's a feedback loop, and it keeps you alive without you worrying about it. You don't go to sleep and think, I got to breathe every 10 or 15 seconds or I'm going to die.
Right.
So the midbrain's like, no problem, right? Yeah. And the midbrain's like, keep that heart pumping, keep your temperature, everything's all good. So you have this wonderful, system built in to keep you just plugging along without you paying any attention to it at all. You can be worried about all this other stuff, and midbrain's like, good. So cascading this huge wave of dopamine hits the midbrain, and the midbrain goes, wow, this is great. and it makes the baby wriggle and leap with pleasure and just suckle as hard as they can. And you literally have tuned them now to say, I need this to survive. Whatever this is. Mm-hmm. So you addict them to sugars and proteins and nutrition, things that the body absolutely needs, but you don't know that you need. The midbrain doesn't know that it needs.
And this is the purpose of this function, is to become accustomed to the healthy things that you need. Healthy attachments is what the reference is. You need food. You need a healthy amount of food, not over or not under, but a certain amount of food. And fascinating to see that feedback loop functioning. When it functions properly, you're alive, and you interact with everything, and normal things bring pleasure.
Right. The other thing is, I just mentioned here, is that it sets up, you mentioned a feedback loop. Mm-hmm. And what is that feedback loop? You crave, after a little while, you crave another meal. You say, well, I want to eat something. Well, where does that come from? Yes, you say, well, my tummy wants to eat something. Well, your tummy has no brain cells at all, very few. Some people think with their stomach, but very few. But the midbrain and that whole cycle, and it's a fascinating, deep, in-depth, millions of years of evolution cycle, which allows you to say, man, I feel like a hamburger.
Right.
Because your midbrain says you need this. You need water. You need air. You need food. You've addicted yourself to food. And when you get a craving that says, I need a hamburger.
I need protein.
I need protein. Well, you express it as, I'm going to go to McDonald's and get the biggest, greasiest thing I can find. But the trigger for that is all in the midbrain, in that part of you that says, if you don't eat this, you're going to die.
Right.
So we're going to eat this because we don't want to die.
And the midbrain is the more primitive part of the brain.
Right.
The frontal cortex is where a lot of the thinking process goes on. And
your will, your emotions, your ability to reason,
your personality,
to negotiate.
Yeah. It's all interacting in the frontal. The midbrain, not concerned with that at all.
Gotta eat.
It needs this in order to survive. That's how it functions.
Right. All the drives, sexual drive, the eating drive, the I feel sleepy, I feel cold, I feel this, all that stuff and just the things that if you try to hold your breath too long, the midbrain is what says you gotta take another breath.
Yeah, you have to breathe.
If you didn't have the midbrain, you could hold your breath until you turned blue and passed out.
Right.
If you didn't have the midbrain, you could just not eat until you just keeled over dead or unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
The midbrain, or you could go to sleep and never wake up again because you forget to breathe. Isn't that interesting? What we think of all the brain, the things that that loves music and understands computer programming and knows to pay the bill next Tuesday, none of that keeps you alive. And if you had to depend on your frontal cortex to keep you alive, you'd be dead in a few days, maybe in a couple of hours, because it just doesn't care.
This is true.
It's like, la, 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 dead. Midbrain's like, no, we are not going to die. And the midbrain, Margaret just mentioned this, midbrain is a primitive part of the brain which says everything's fine, just be quiet. Everything's fine, I'm just going to be quiet. But when things are not fine, the midbrain takes over. And it says, all you guys, all your funny, wonderful little thoughts and what you want to do next Tuesday, I don't care. Go get that freaking hamburger. You've got no choice.
Mm-hmm.
So you're addicted to food. You're addicted to breathing.
Yeah.
You're addicted to taking water. You're addicted to staying alive as as silly as that sounds, you're addicted to keeping your body going. This is what keeps the clock ticking.
Right. No, this is, frankly, we're thankful for the fact that we don't have to manage all of these functions. If we did, that would be the only thing that we could do.
You have a lot of dead people all over the place.
Well, yeah.
Forgot to breathe again, didn't you? You moron. There's another one, damn it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would be dead pretty quick because you couldn't remember that you had to breathe.
Had to breathe.
Or
you don't. Thank God you don't have to.
Right, right. It's a fascinating thing, but that mechanism is there. So, when you kind of, not fool the midbrain, but it has to function a certain way. And should we speak about stress or what?
Well, you know what? Let's talk about this. So all those are all the good things about addiction. You're addicted to all the things that keep you alive.
Okay, this is positive aspect of addiction.
Right. And so it's a survival mechanism.
It is a structure that has been set up so that you may survive.
Right.
Now, when the structure becomes a prison, then that's your negative addiction. And unfortunately, in our society right now, that word addiction is negative. That's all you're thinking of is how it contains a person or controls a person.
So everyone's midbrain is different. Dr. Labor tells us a little bit about that. And so everyone's midbrain reacts differently to different things. You know, people who, they prefer one food over another, or they prefer, one type of drink over another. So your midbrain can be hijacked by certain substances that in essence, for your particular midbrain, you're sensitive to, or you have a predilection to. So you say, well, okay, my midbrain can do whatever it wants. I can take a cigarette or I can have a drink of alcohol and go right along like everybody else. I can give it up whenever I want to. But in the myriad of midbrains that exist out there, of the millions and billions of people, certain people are wired a little bit differently. So you may be able to take a drink, and you may be able to have a toke of pot, and you may even be able to have a sniff, and who knows, and you're just fine. Another person with one of these particular things, their reaction to this stimulus doesn't, and this is something that Dr. Labor really was very, very, very clear about, and this is something which people have confused about addiction from the very, very beginning of time. They say, well, I'm addicted to cocaine, or I'm addicted to drugs, or whatever it is. You're not addicted to any of those things. What you're addicted to is dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
Every stimulus that gives you pleasure does so through one neurotransmitter chemical, which is dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
But your physiology is stimulated differently by different things. I like blue, you like green, I like this, I like that. Well, yes, it's all different. So when a person whose physiology stimulated by a particular drug such that it goes to 11, everyone else goes to 4, and it goes to 11. So you get 11 dopamines. And you don't just feel pleasure, you feel ecstasy, you feel beyond anything that you've ever felt before in your life. And what that does is, in essence, it hijacks the midbrain. Because the midbrain gets triggered. It says, we need this. We need this to survive. And that's the hook. The level of stimulus and the level of dopamine crashes past any of the normal barriers that people have for pleasure and goes to 11. I mean, Margaret, you should give more of the details here because you have it much more than I do.
Well, okay. The normal levels that trigger the dopamine, something that you enjoy doing, certain hobbies, interactions with people, you see a favorite person or you're going on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
All of that triggers a level of dopamine, and you're like, yeah, this is good. This is what I want to do. But if the levels are either too high, in other words, taking drugs basically raises those levels very, very high. We can't handle it. So it releases a different factor in the body so that it can't receive as much dopamine. So it doesn't destroy itself. And when it does that, it means that you can tolerate having more dopamine in your system than you actually need. What that does is it sets a whole new level higher up so that you can handle a higher level of dopamine floating in your system. But that new threshold, new level, takes time to reset to normal. So this is why if, say, you're doing drugs or taking alcohol, it takes more and more and more to get the same high you had when you did it the first time.
Mm.
Because your body has said, wait a minute, this is not good for you. In order to tolerate this so we don't go into seizure or death, we're going to lower your ability to receive certain amounts of dopamine. Now, one thing I do want to say before all that was the dopamine levels, or rather the dopamine production can be triggered by anything. It doesn't have to be only alcohol or drugs of every kind, or you can be addicted to gambling,
right.
And that high or that hit that you get to bring you to that euphoric level.
Right. People get addicted to not eating.
Right. Or the food. Gambling and pornography on the screen, if they're looking, because it's a stimulus that hits and makes your cells produce the dopamine in order to get that feeling. But all those, the pornography, the food, the gambling, those are considered process addictions,
right?
As opposed to the physical body addictions where you're taking a substance internally in order to trigger it.
But still, though, it's all dopamine.
Right.
It's the origin of the dopamine.
Right. You're still getting triggered, and this is what we're discussing is the mechanism where the addiction takes over in a life, because you keep wanting more of the stuff that made you high or happy or whatever, euphoric.
But then the feedback loop that Margaret just described, the pernicious part of it is that your body knows it's bad for you. Your midbrain knows it's bad for you. So it keeps lowering and lowering and lowering. Or rather, I should say, it keeps suppressing and suppressing and suppressing its ability to receive dopamine.
Right.
Dopamine gets produced, it has to get received. So when the receivers are getting overwhelmed, it's like, my God, we're getting so much dopamine. We need less receivers, which means we need, if you want that same, if the pleasure pernicious feedback loop of I want to feel good, and the midbrain going, this is too much dopamine, they work against each other, so that now you get to the point where it's going to take you 5 times as much drug, or 5 times as much sex, or 5 times as much gambling, and the downstream consequences of that societally and everything else is what kills people. But that whole mechanism is, again, sort of a survival. The body's going, this is too much. So let's try to fix it. But the fixing it part of it is a negative, or it becomes a feedback loop, which no matter what you do, you spiral downward. You're having to take more and more and more of the drug, or more and more and more of the whatever, get the same high, while your body continuously is basically making it so that the next high has to be even higher. The next high has to be even higher.
Well, in order to feel.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing about it was, in order to come back to normal functioning levels, Dr. Laber was saying that you had to be abstinent of it or not taking any of it for a year for your body to come down into a reset position. And the problem with that is you feel like you're not feeling anything. There's no feedback on pleasure or even some senses. It just feels like, I'm not human anymore. What is this that I'm feeling? And it's a scary place to be. And people don't want to be in that. So she was speaking of certain drugs to help calm down the midbrain.
This is the sort of the treatment portion of it. We can talk about it. So once you've gone down this path and you're in the prison of addiction, how do you get out? And this is where the clinical portion of it comes in.
Right, but the whole process of where you're looking at it and wondering, what's actually happening to me. Suddenly you're in this vicious cycle. Most of this, how to say, it's understanding that there should be levels that you are aware of. In other words, moderation, whatever it may be. Learning how to manage your life here, not be overwhelmed.
If we back up a little bit, I think so you get into this through a process which is normal and natural. The normal, natural process of being addicted to things that you actually need. So the body learns to need things. Everyone's body is different, and then you introduce a substance which overstimulates the body, overstimulates this dopamine addiction system, which is actually a survival mechanism, and gets you addicted to something which is harmful in many ways, and also because of the way the body deals with high levels of any neurochemical, it tries to balance it. In balancing that huge influx, it makes it so that two bad things happen because you crave this, because once you've been introduced to something and the midbrain thinks, I need this to survive, you start to crave it, because you crave it and you crave the sensation that it gave you, which is the satisfied, beautiful, happy feeling. You have a need which gets harder and harder and harder to satisfy. And Dr. Laber very, very aptly compared it to a hungry tiger or to an angry tiger. This tiger wants to eat. This tiger says, go get another hit of this, whatever it is, because we need it. We need it to live. We need it to survive. So people who are unintentionally addicted to a harmful substance, something which will damage their ability to live a successful or a productive society, their ability to in essence function as a human being. Yet the midbrain says, I need this, I'm addicted to this, I must have this. Spiral downward into a prison of addiction. You are now at a point where every hit needs to be better than the last one or bigger. You're now at a point where you'll do anything, like It's like food or water or breathing. When you're being denied water, you'll do anything to get water. When you're being denied food, starving, you'll do anything to get food.
Well, the thinking part of your brain, your forebrain, is
Gone.
turned off. It's turned off.
Completely gone.
The only thing that's there is the midbrain that's trying to survive.
Right.
Help the body survive.
And it's been hijacked by this substance that then, and that's the thing that in essence for perhaps the last 40 or 50 or 60 years, however long people have been doing wars on this drug or that drug or the other drug, at the end of the day, it's a war on the addiction cycle of dopamine, and you can't win that war by just saying to people, stop. Margaret just said, if you say to an addict, stop, in fact, they may say they will stop, but the craving will exist. And even if you get them to stop, if you put them into a system where they are, let's say you put them in prison and you deny them the drug because you just physically cannot get it. They go through a horrible level of detox, an initial acute session of the body just in agony craving this substance. Then that acute phase goes away, but then you have still now an incredibly depressed, joy-deprived person because no level of dopamine gets them to the level that makes them feel joy because their system has been so wrecked and really physically damaged. The brain has been physically damaged at a cellular neurotransmitter cellular level, so that now recovery can take many, many, many months, years to get to that reset point again.
And when you are in that state, or it's like severe withdrawal, you need help.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do this on your own. You need help, other people helping you get through this physical agony, turmoil, and because you can literally die. Like if you're withdrawing from alcohol, you really need to have someone there because there's experiences where the body will just everything from choking on your own vomit to just maintaining you medically. So this is something where people have to help people to get through this. And I believe the main reason people don't necessarily do that is because there is a judgment call on this. People believe that, well, isn't it just you just don't say no to the drug? You're you're morally weak. You don't have any backbone. And if they're in a true addiction,
no morals exist.
Right. It has become a true physical disease. It's like saying, can't you just say no to cancer?
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
No to diabetes, whatever it might be. This is actually a very important point. Maybe we should just go off on this for a second. For all of modern times, maybe since the Chinese opioid epidemic in the 1800s, people have been trying to treat, by saying, well, don't you see the damage that you're doing? Don't you see the pain that you're inflicting? Can't you? And what you're trying to do is reason with a disease process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only been in the last, let's say, couple of decades that true, and this is, fMRIs and all the other research, all the other diagnostic tools that are being applied now, and the deep understanding of the brain, the deep understanding of neurotransmitters and damage and the structures within the brain, that people like Dr. Laber and many others have started to try and do two things. Number one, say to folks who are addicted that you truly are ill. You have a disease. Your body was sort of, first of all, like many diseases, you have a predilection to heart disease. You have a predilection to diabetes. You have a predilection to cancer. Your body, whatever of the millions of cells that make up you, is sensitive to a particular environment, and you have a mutation, and then you get cancer. It's sensitive to a particular level of sugar, and you have too much sugar, and you end up diabetic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a predilection, you have a genetic predisposition. You are then exposed over a period of time to something which attacks or takes advantage of that. Damage occurs. Your pancreas is damaged. Your heart is damaged. Your cells are damaged. The disease ensues. An acute form of the disease ensues. You said, well, you've now got acute heart disease. You now have lung cancer. You now have diabetes you have severe diabetes, whatever. And then you have to treat that disease. You can't just say, well, can't you just, stop doing what you're doing? No, you can't. No amount of willpower, no amount of reasoning with somebody will get rid of their cancer. We'd say, well, that's just laughable. Well, okay. Addiction is the exact same thing. It's a healthy, normal organ, the midbrain. That healthy, normal organ has a feedback mechanism which addicts you to good things like food and water. That feedback mechanism has been damaged because your particular body was way overstimulated by drug X. Drug X, all it did was give you a huge influx of actual things that people need, like dopamine. But you got dopamine at 17 versus 3. That 17 dopamine didn't just give you a huge high and then you were better. It damaged your brain. Your brain is now damaged permanently in some ways, and no amount of telling you to stop, which is like, can't you just realize that the damage you're doing to everyone around you? And your forebrain says, yeah, I really, really, and your midbrain does, I don't care. Mm-hmm. No reasoning in the midbrain. Midbrain says, we need this. We need this or we're going to die.
Right. It's basically the feeling that you are going to die unless you get this. And it's...
no reasoning with that.
No. And to realize that it's actually a disease, because as you said, people think that you can reason with this part of you, or the person that is going through this, reason and show them what this is harmful, you have to just choose differently. Mm-hmm. Well, the part of you that chooses is in the fore part of your head, your brain. But what's driving your body is and its survival is your midbrain. So the person that you are, your personality, is looking at it going, well, I can't stop it, I'm failing. Mm-hmm. Well, it's understanding that you really don't have control of that part of you. It was designed that it can function regardless of what you're thinking. If you think about that, that's exactly what it does.
It's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. So it's learning, you're almost learning how to handle yourself. This part of you that has this sub-program going on to keep your body going. But why am I doing what I'm doing?
So there's a deep insight that's required.
Yes.
And so why do people, what's the most effective, one of the most effective things is some of these 12-step programs. Some of these ways of introducing a combination of both treatment and an introspection, a raising of consciousness is really what it comes down to. All of these different 12-step programs are an introduction to spirituality and a way of introspecting, of understanding that in an unconscious form, your midbrain is a completely unconscious part of your brain. In an unconscious form, you're being, your existence is getting hijacked and getting pushed into this destructive behavior. One of the only ways to get out of this prison of addiction, besides a treatment for the acute phase of detox, the acute phase of cravings, you can treat those things. But Dr. Laber and many others have said the only way truly out of is to raise your consciousness become aware
Right.
of what it is that you're dealing with, that you're dealing with a damaged brain,
Mm-hmm.
that the only way to help for the damaged brain to be rescued, if you will, for these cravings to be mitigated, is to strengthen the part of you which is weaker right now because it's unconscious. That forebrain part of you needs the spirituality. It needs the structure. It needs, one of the very first things I believe that they say in the 12-step program is that, and besides I'm an addict, that I need to appeal to a higher power.
Right.
And that higher power can be whatever you wish it to be, but if you were going back to Tolle, it's to appeal to the consciousness, the being which you are, which is not the egoic, unconscious forebrain which is taken over, or the physical body, the craving, the damaged, diseased portion of you, which is just going to run you ragged. You have to strengthen the being and become the true person, and then introspect and see that, yes, here's a craving. Like here's a fear, or here's anger, or here's an emotion. Well, here's a craving. I know it's going to tell me I need to do this. I know that it's going to make me feel that I'm going to die if I don't get it. But if I strengthen that spiritual part of me, that part of me which can in essence allow the craving to rise up and not act upon it, like
Right.
allowing an emotion to rise up, fear, anger, whatever it is, to give it space. I feel this incredible craving to go and get the drug, but I know it's just a craving. I'm not going to die.
Right.
No matter how fearful I feel, I'm not going to die of
Right.
fear.
Right.
No matter how angry I feel, I'm not going to die of anger.
Right.
And I'm not going to die of a craving.
Right. It is that awareness
Mm-hmm.
which is key, and drawing strength from it, because focusing in on the craving alone narrows your ability to interact in general. The only thing you see, your only focus is that craving. And the larger you is not even taken into consideration. So it is making room for the acknowledgement that, yes, this is going on, but I'm more than just this craving. Because the midbrain wants you to believe that this is the only thing really that matters, because, we're going to die unless we get this. But it's not necessarily true. It's just not true. You are so much more than what your body's telling you that you're experiencing and what you think about yourself. The 12 steps, yes, literally have been found to be exceedingly effective in this, as well as you must be in a community to keep reminding you, because isolation is a big factor with this.
Mm.
When you're isolated, then your midbrain can tell you anything, but you're having a fight, split yourself in two. And this is the fight that's going on. But that's not true. But your midbrain is saying, well, can't you feel this? This is what's real. This is what's real. It's what I'm feeling right now in my physical body. And your frontal cortex, where your thinking process is, may understand that, no, this is what my body's going through. But learning how to focus on other things, not just on what you are feeling. Because like when the little ones fall down and they hurt themselves, if they're looking at the boo-boo, whatever it was, the scrape, they're just going to start crying, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts.
Yes.
And then you distract them, and then suddenly it's like, oh, where did that all go? It's beginning to understand the different levels of awareness and not to be convinced that it's only what you're feeling right now that matters. Because that's what we've all been trained to. Well, no, it's got to be what I'm feeling.
It's so analogous to that, exactly the exercise you just mentioned, that when you get the scrape and the boo-boo, or somebody takes your toy, and that huge upwelling of emotion floods your brain, floods your body. It feels like everything in the world is gotta be that I have to address this wrong, or I have to address this pain. And so you narrow all your consciousness down to my leg hurts, or you narrow all your consciousness down to I feel so bad because that person took my toy away. And so this is the same thing as when the ego, or when the emotion triggers the ego into the pain body, because it takes over, it completely gets rid of, or rather it covers over the consciousness. Consciousness is always there, but it takes over your behavior. You lash out. You do things which could damage you or damage others. It's very, very similar to an addict succumbing to cravings, to something that they know will do damage to them because they've been overwhelmed by, in essence, a pain body, or they've been overwhelmed by the craving. So the 12-step programs are a way of spiritually growing yourself into an awareness of, I feel a craving, and giving it like you did with the children when they were feeling angry. You give it a name. I am feeling a craving. I am feeling angry. I'm not, I am the craving. I have to.
No, that's an
I must give in to the craving. Here's where the cravings go. They have this giant bucket, and the craving comes, and I say, well, then there's the craving, or there's my fear, or there's my anger, or there's my, I feel hurt, or I feel sad. But if you say, I am sad, I am angry, I am the craving, then it's taken you away. It's become the focus.
Oh, you've descended into your midbrain.
You've descended into your midbrain, and you're going to do anything that the craving or the anger or the fear wants you to do. And then later, you'll say, why did I hurt all these people with these angry words?
And I didn't mean to do that.
And I didn't mean to do it. Or why did I steal money and do whatever it is I could to get that fix or that hit? I didn't mean to do any of that. I love you, but none of that mattered when the craving took over, or when the emotion took over, or when the ego took over. So the spirituality that makes 12-step programs work is analogous, or it's really just a component or a piece of the same sort of awareness. Become consciousness to understand that the ego, or the emotions, or cravings, which are even lower, they're at the physiological level of a craving for something which rises up and tries to hijack your body and tries to hijack your brain. And you have to, through awareness, say, I see it. Here it is.
Mm-hmm. And
just like you told me it would be, there's the craving. But I know where it goes, and I know that I can live through it. I can live through the anger. I can live through the scraped knee.
Right.
You know?
Yes, you are more than what the experience is telling you. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this is something that we human beings have been dealing with through the centuries.
Hundreds of thousands of years.
It's just that in this particular century, we can actually see the processes that are going on in the brain and what parts of the brain are actually functioning or are not functioning, and see its correlation. But I think it was St. Paul in the Bible. He was talking about being controlled. I am, the quote is Romans 7. I am carnal, meaning the body, in the body, sold into slavery by sin. What I do not understand. For I do not do what I want, but I do what I hate. For I know that good does not dwell in me, that is, in my flesh. The willing is ready at hand, but doing the good is not. For I do not do the good I want, but I do the evil I do not want. And he had been struggling with something. Now, I don't know. We don't know what it was, but we do know that he had asked God to take this away. God basically said to him, no. Because without it, you're in a process right now. It can't just be taken away like that.
I mean, this is a great point in that in awareness, one can take suffering, and this is really, when we talk about addiction, we didn't even do our quote, but when we talk about addiction, addiction is all about pain in essence. It's about suffering in one sense or another, because a lot of times people come to addiction, and we didn't really talk about this, but I'll just put it in briefly. You can be primed for an addiction to a substance which gives you pleasure because you've never experienced pleasure. You've been in a situation, let's say a situation where your life circumstances were extremely challenging. You were subject to a lot of trauma, a lot of stress, a lot of psychological abuse. The other mechanism, which is when people say, oh, well, he comes or she comes from a bad home, or she comes from bad circumstances, and now she's a drinker, and now she uses drugs. And there's all the societal judgment about that, and we really don't have time to go into it. But the point is
another.
We might have to have another prison of that, but the point is those stressors also affect your brain. They also tend to focus on the pain body and on the ego. And physiologically, they burn pathways into the brain, or they make the midbrain susceptible to high levels of dopamine as its only way of feeling joy, because stress also reduces the ability of the midbrain to feel joy. It, in essence, blocks dopamine.
We should talk about that one
at another point,
because there is so much there.
There's so much there. So we may have to do a Prison of Addiction Part 2. But in any case, the true afflictions, suffering, can lead you to addiction, but it can also, as Paul says in that quote, and Paul is always very dense, so you have to kind of read him 3 or 4 times, but what he's really saying is that his flesh is, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The flesh, he knows, he's aware that his flesh is, it gives him a predilection to doing what he doesn't want, what he hates. Right, but in awareness, when you're aware of that, so the 12-step programs, which basically make addicts aware that this craving which rises up is not you. It's like when you're if you're in Tolle's parlance, if you're seeing the egoic emotion, the trigger, the thing that is trying to take over, and you use that wonderful phrase which we've talked about many times, is that so? Is this whole situation which is rising up my fear, or rising up anger, or rising up all these societal accusations, is this truly reality, or is it just a craving which is going to rise up and go away, or just an emotion which is rise up and go away. So in awareness, this teaches you this spirituality. It teaches you the expansiveness that allows cravings to not take over, or allows anger to not take over. It allows you to be aware of who you really are, to start to come into touch with the being which is you, the actual I.
Right, the wholeness of who you are, and not be driven by compulsions or cravings, because you're more than all of that. Just more than that. So much to you. And I believe we've reached the end of our hour.
Did pretty good for being that much out of practice, don't you think? We remembered how to talk.
Talking is good.
Talking is good. So go ahead, wind us up.
All right. Well, I'm Margaret.
I'm Michael.
Thank you for listening.